Remember when a single dollar bill, crisp green paper with the Queen's face, actually felt like power in your pocket? Before the loonie clinked its way into our lives in 1987, that buck could fill a paper bag with penny candy, get you 4 rounds on Pac-Man, or buy stamps to mail letters across the country. This is 20 things $1 could buy you in 1980s Canada. These weren't just prices on a tag. They were the small freedoms that shaped our days. The donut run before hockey practice, the payphone call home from the mall, the comic book you'd been eyeing all week at the drugstore. Every corner store, every arcade, every Tim Hortons counter held possibilities that $1 could unlock. Today we're diving into 20 everyday treasures your loonie could snag back then. Which ones do you remember most? Let's roll back the decades. Penny candy paper bag. The corner store candy wall was an institution. Bins and jars lined shelves from knee-height to just out of reach, filled with gummies, sour keys, marshmallow bananas, Swedish berries, cola bottles, and those weird root beer barrels that nobody really liked, but everyone bought anyway. The system was pure democracy. Point at what you wanted, watch the clerk scoop it with that plastic scoop, weigh it on the scale that probably hadn't been calibrated since 1975, then pour it into a small paper bag. Individual candies cost anywhere from 1 cent to 5 cents each throughout the decade. This meant your dollar could buy you an absolutely stuffed bag if you chose wisely. The math became instinctive. You'd calculate on the fly, 5 of those, 10 of these, 3 of those big ones. The clerk would nod, scoop, and hand over your sugar stash. Why did it matter? Because it was yours. You chose every piece. You learned basic math and decision-making. You learned to negotiate. Sometimes, can you throw in 2 more gummies? You stood at that counter feeling like a sophisticated consumer, even at age 8. The smell of that store, cardboard sugar, the faint petroleum whiff of plastic toys on the next aisle, became the smell of freedom. But ingredient costs climbed. Labor became more expensive. Big chains moved toward prepackaged candy bars and standardized pricing. The health department started frowning on open bins. The stores themselves began to vanish, replaced by franchises with corporate policies. The penny candy culture slowly dissolved. By the 90s, those paper bags were memories. By the 2000s, the corner stores themselves were largely gone. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to find that pick-your-own candy experience anywhere. And if you do, that dollar won't even get you started. 4 arcade plays drop a quarter into a cabinet at the mall arcade or pizza place, and you got 1 shot at glory. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Galaga, Defender, later stuff like Double Dragon and Street Fighter. 25 cents was the standard price per credit through the early and mid-80s. Your dollar meant 4 lives, 4 chances to beat your high score, impress your friends, or at least make it past the first level without looking like a complete amateur. Arcades were social hubs. You didn't just play, you watched. You learned patterns by observing the kid who could make a single quarter last 20 minutes. You trash-talked. You formed lines. You claimed machines. The arcade smelled like carpet cleaner and pepperoni, the sounds layered into a symphony of bleeps, bloops, explosions, and the occasional triumphant shout. 4 plays for $1 gave you real time. You could stretch a Saturday afternoon on a $5 bill if you played smart. But machines got more expensive. Operators needed higher margins. Some games jumped to 50 cents per play by the late 80s. Then, home consoles improved. Then the arcade era just ended. The quarter slot became a relic. The ritual of converting bills into tokens at the change booth vanished. By the time the 2000s arrived, arcades were nostalgia pieces, not real hangouts. That dollar bought you more than gameplay. It bought you a place to be, a culture to belong to, a skill to practice. When the price doubled, something intangible doubled too, the distance between you and that world. Weekday newspaper papers landed on porches with a thud every morning. Ink-stained fingers were a fact of life. Weekday editions of city dailies, the Toronto Star, Vancouver Sun, Montreal Gazette, whatever your local was, cost somewhere between 25 and 50 cents through most of the 80s, depending on your city and the year. $1 got you 2 papers, sometimes more if you caught early decade pricing. Why did it matter? Because the newspaper was how you knew things: sports scores, classifieds, comics, TV listings, obituaries, local scandals. You read it with breakfast. You folded it on the bus. You checked the weather before leaving the house. You argued over editorials. You cut out recipes and coupons. The paper was a daily ritual, a tangible connection to your community and the wider world. But newsprint costs rose. Distribution networks became more expensive. Wages went up. Competition from other media nibbled at revenue. Slowly, inexorably, cover prices climbed. By the 90s, weekday papers were pushing $1 or more. By the 2010s, the print newspaper itself was a threatened species, with many dailies cutting back to weekly or shutting down entirely. 2 plain donuts at Tim Hortons, a fresh honey dip or old-fashioned plain donut at Tim Hortons or any local donut shop back when local donut shops still existed, cost roughly 39 to 49 cents each through much of the 80s. Your dollar covered 2 donuts, maybe with a few pennies left over. This wasn't just breakfast, it was culture. The Saturday morning hockey run, the coffee break at work, the road trip snack. You could walk into a Timmy's, order 2 donuts and a small coffee, and be out the door for under $2. The donuts were made on-site in many locations back then, baked fresh throughout the day, pulled from racks behind the counter by staff wearing brown and orange uniforms. The ritual mattered. The smell of sugar and yeast as you walked in, the metal trays lined with rows of donuts behind the glass. The decision process: chocolate glaze or maple, sprinkles or plain. The feel of the wax paper bag, slightly warm, grease starting to soak through by the time you got to the car. But costs rose. Tim Hortons corporatized, shifted to centralized bake-off systems where frozen dough was shipped to stores. Ingredients became more expensive. Energy costs climbed. Menu prices followed. By the 2000s, 2 donuts could easily run you $3 or $4. The dollar for 2 donuts era became a memory like so much else. Telling and preparing this video took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the video. 2 or 3 domestic stamps. Mailing a letter within Canada cost 30 to 39 cents for most of the 80s, depending on exactly when you bought your stamps. Early in the decade, you could sometimes get 3 stamps for $1. Later, you'd get 2 for sure, maybe a bit of change. Either way, your dollar kept you connected. Stamps mattered because mail mattered. Birthday cards to grandparents, pen pals, utility bill payments, subscription renewals, thank you notes, letters to friends who'd moved away. You kept a roll of stamps in a kitchen drawer. You licked the back before self-adhesive became standard, pressed it onto the envelope's corner, dropped it in the red mailbox, and trusted Canada Post to do its job. The ritual was simple, but significant. Walking to the mailbox, lifting the heavy metal door, hearing your letter thunk onto the pile inside, knowing it would travel across provinces, over mountains, through snowstorms, and arrive within days. But postal rates climbed steadily. Fuel costs, labor agreements, and the decline in mail volume as email emerged all pushed prices upward. By the 90s, stamps were pushing 50 cents and beyond. Today, a single domestic stamp costs more than $1. The mail ritual persists for some, but its centrality to daily life has evaporated. Local bus ride. In many Canadian cities during the early to mid-80s, a single adult bus fare hovered around or just under $1. Some cities used tokens, some used exact change. Either way, you dropped your dollar, or token, or coins, into the box, grabbed a paper transfer, and rode across town. Youth fares were cheaper. Seniors got discounts. But that basic dollar ride was standard in many places. Public transit was how you got around if you didn't drive. School, work, downtown, the mall, doctor's appointments, visiting friends. The bus was reliable, frequent, affordable. You learned the routes, you knew which driver was friendly, and which one would bark at you for not having exact change. You sat on vinyl seats that smelled faintly of disinfectant and watched your city roll past the windows. But operating costs climbed. Fuel prices jumped during various oil crises. Union contracts pushed wages up. Farebox revenue couldn't keep pace. Cities raised fares incrementally but steadily. By the 90s, a single ride in most major cities cost well over $1. Today, transit fares in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal can run $3 to $4 for a single trip. About 2 liters of regular gas prices fluctuated wildly in the 80s, but during certain periods, especially the early part of the decade, pump prices in parts of Canada hovered around 40 to 50 cents per liter. Your dollar got you roughly 2 liters, maybe a bit more if you timed it right. That wasn't a full tank, but it wasn't nothing either. It moved the needle. Driving culture was different then. Cars were bigger, thirstier, but gas was relatively cheap, at least compared to what was coming. You'd pull into a self-serve station, pump your own fuel, full service was dying but not dead, squeegee your windshield with the free soapy water, and pay cash at the counter. The attendant might not even look up from their magazine. 2 liters didn't take you far, but it was enough to matter. Enough to run errands, enough to pick someone up, enough to avoid being stranded. The ritual of fueling up was casual, frequent, not a major budget event. But oil prices destabilized repeatedly through the 80s and beyond. Taxes increased, station overhead costs rose. By the 90s, $1 barely bought a single liter. Today you'd be lucky to get half a liter for $1. The car-dependent culture didn't change, but the economics sure did. School milk cartons. At recess or lunch, school milk came in small, waxed cartons delivered cold in plastic crates, chocolate or white. 25 to 35 cents each in many schools. Your dollar bought you 3 or 4 cartons, enough to last a couple of days if you rationed. School milk wasn't fancy, it was functional hydration, calcium for growing bones, part of the Canada Food Guide propaganda that permeated 80s classrooms. But it was also social, the great chocolate versus white debate, trading snacks, the challenge of opening the carton correctly without it exploding. The smell of dairy and cardboard mingling in the classroom. Teachers or parent volunteers often ran the milk program. You'd line up, hand over your coins, get your carton, and return to your desk. Simple, direct, affordable. But dairy costs rose. Packaging became more expensive. Delivery logistics got complicated. Schools shifted to vending machines or outside suppliers. Prices climbed. By the 90s, school milk programs were fading. By the 2000s, many schools had dropped them entirely in favor of bottled water or juice boxes sold at much higher margins. A single fast food item. Walk into a McDonald's, Burger King, or Harvey's in the mid to late 80s, and you'd find value-tier items priced under $1, a small fries, a soft-serve cone, sometimes even a basic burger depending on promotions and location. Your dollar got you something edible, hot, quick. Fast food was a treat, not a daily staple for most families, but it was accessible. You'd hit the food court at the mall after school, you'd stop on a road trip, you'd grab something cheap because you were broke but hungry. The value menu wasn't formalized yet, but the concept existed. Give people something for under $1, get them in the door, upsell from there. The ritual was familiar, the smell of fries and fryer oil, the laminated menu boards with backlit photos, the bored teenager at the register, the thin paper wrappers and cardboard containers. You'd eat standing up, sitting on a curb, walking through the parking lot. It wasn't fancy. It didn't need to be. But input costs climbed. Minimum wage increases affected labor. Supply chains became more complex. Menu modernization pushed even value items over the dollar mark. By the 90s, the under a dollar fast food item was rare. Today, it's essentially extinct. OPC hockey cards. Those iconic wax packs with the bright stripes, the thin stick of gum, the thrill of the rookie hunt. OPC hockey cards in the 80s cost roughly 29 to 45 cents per pack. Your dollar bought you 2 or 3 packs. Inside, team photos, stats, French on one side, English on the other, and maybe, just maybe, a Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux rookie card worth a fortune decades later. Hockey cards were currency among kids. You traded at recess. You organized them in binders, sorted by team, by position, by who was coolest. You snapped that flat pink gum even though it tasted like cardboard. You argued about who was better, Gretzky, or whoever your dad liked. The ritual was tactile, ripping the pack, smelling the ink and gum, flipping through the cards, protecting your favorites in plastic sleeves. But the market changed. Licensing fees exploded. Premium sets entered the market with higher prices and fancier designs. Collector demand shifted from kids to investors. Pack prices rose accordingly. By the 90s, a single pack could easily cost $2 or $3. The casual accessibility evaporated. One Marvel or DC comic book spinner racks at drugstores, convenience stores, even grocery stores held the latest adventures of Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, Superman. Early to mid-80s cover prices in Canada often hovered around 60 to 75 cents. Your dollar covered one issue with change left over, or sometimes exactly one issue as prices crept up. Comics were monthly installments of mythology. You followed storylines over years. You debated cliffhangers. You read letters, pages, and felt connected to a community. You learned to read through sequential art, absorbing narrative structure and character development without realizing you were learning anything at all. The ritual, checking the rack every week to see if the new issue had arrived. The smell of newsprint, the glossy covers, the ads in the back for X-ray glasses and sea monkeys, the slight guilt of spending money on junk when you could be buying something more respectable. The thrill of finding a rare issue or a first appearance. But paper costs rose. Ink became more expensive. The direct market, comic shops, shifted distribution economics. Cover prices climbed steadily. By the late 90s, comics were pushing $4 or $5. Today, a single issue can run $6 or more. The casual newsstand reader disappeared. Comics became a specialty hobby, not a mass medium. 99-cent weekday. VHS rental independent video rental stores in the 80s often ran specials. 99-cent rentals on weekday nights, Tuesday or Wednesday, to drive traffic during slow periods. $1, one tape, one night. You grabbed something from the wall, action, comedy, horror, whatever, took it home, watched it, rewound it, be kind, please rewind, and returned it the next day. This was pre-blockbuster dominance in many markets. Local stores, mom-and-pop operations, places that smelled like carpet and popcorn. The walls were lined with VHS boxes, the big plastic clamshells with cover art that promised way more than the movie usually delivered. You'd browse for 20 minutes, debating, reading the backs, checking the return date sticker to see if it was even in. The ritual mattered. Picking the movie was half the fun, making popcorn at home, gathering the family, fighting over the remote, the tracking lines at the start of the tape because someone didn't rewind properly. The satisfaction of a good pick, the disappointment of a dud. But rental chains moved in with bigger selections and corporate pricing. Licensing costs increased. New release windows tightened. Base rental prices climbed. By the late 90s, rentals were routinely $3 to $5. Then DVDs arrived. Then streaming. Then the entire rental industry collapsed into nostalgia. 4 payphone calls. Local calls from a payphone cost a quarter through most of the 80s. Your dollar meant 4 calls, 4 chances to check in, coordinate pickup times, let someone know you'd be late, call a friend to meet up. Payphones were everywhere. Malls, street corners, gas stations, bus stops, restaurants. airports. You'd approach the booth, lift the heavy receiver, drop your quarter, dial, and hope someone answered. The metallic clink of the coin, the dial tone, the slight echo on the line, the countdown timer if it was a long-distance call. This was how logistics happened before cell phones. Pick me up at 6. Meet me at the arcade. I'm running late. Can you grab milk on your way home? Simple, essential communication. But phone companies raised rates. Cell phones arrived and slowly made payphones irrelevant. By the late 90s, payphones were dirty, broken, ignored. By the 2010s, they were nearly extinct. The few that remain are relics, museum pieces, photo ops, small Slurpee or fountain pop, a small Slurpee from 7-Eleven, or a small fountain drink from just about anywhere often came in under $1, especially in the early to mid-80s. You'd hit the convenience store after street hockey, fill a cup with blue or red ice slush, jam a dome lid on top, grab a neon straw, and walk out with brain freeze in your fist. The ritual was summer. Biking to the store, sticky hands, condensation dripping down the cup, the syrup-sweet taste, and the way it stained your tongue. Fighting with your friends over which flavor combination was best. The brain freeze that made you stop walking and wince. Nothing fancy, nothing special, but deeply satisfying. $1 bought you relief from the heat, a social excuse, a reason to leave the house. But cup sizes got bigger while prices climbed. Syrup, cups, lids, straws, and freight costs all increased. By the 90s, even small sizes were pushing past $1. Today, a medium Slurpee can run $2 to $3 depending on location. 45 RPM bargain bin, single record stores and even some drugstores had bargain bins full of 45 RPM singles, one song per side, usually older hits or B-sides, clearance priced at 99 cents or less. Your dollar got you one record, one hit, and the dream of becoming a DJ or building a mixtape empire. The 45 was compact, portable, iconic. The big center hole, the paper sleeve with the label showing through, the satisfying click when you dropped it on the turntable spindle. You'd play it over and over until you knew every lyric, every guitar riff, every drum fill. Bargain bins were treasure hunts. You'd flip through dozens of records looking for something cool, something rare, something your friends didn't have. You'd buy it on impulse and discover a new favorite band, or you'd buy it because the cover art looked weird, or because it was literally the only dollar you had and you wanted to buy something. But the format died. Cassettes took over, then CDs. Retail space for 45s vanished. Record stores closed or shifted focus. By the 90s, finding a 45 was hard. Today, they're collector's items, nostalgia pieces, sold online for way more than 99 cents. Self-serve car wash. Cycle. Pull into a self-serve car wash bay, drop $1 into the coin box, and the timer would start. You'd grab the wand, blast your car with soapy water, rinse it, maybe hit it with wax if you had time left. The beep warning you that your time was almost up. The scramble to finish before the water cut off. This was a Saturday ritual. Dad washing the car, kids helping, spraying each other, fighting winter salt, getting rid of mud, making the old Honda presentable, the smell of industrial soap, the roar of the pressure washer, the satisfaction of seeing dirt swirl down the drain. $1 bought you a few minutes, enough if you were quick, enough to feel productive, enough to justify the trip. But costs rose. Utilities became more expensive. Maintenance on the equipment climbed. Soap and chemical inputs increased in price. By the 90s, $1 barely got you started. Automated car washes took over, charging $5 or $10 a pop. Community pool or public skating. Youth or matinee admission to a community pool or public skating rink in many towns and smaller cities hovered around $1 in the early to mid-80s. You'd show up with your towel or skates, pay at the desk, and spend an afternoon swimming or skating. These were cheap thrills, city-funded fun. Public pools with the smell of chlorine and the echo of splashing, Skating rinks with scratchy ice and bad pop music on the speakers. You'd go with friends. You'd show off new tricks. You'd wipe out spectacularly and laugh about it. It was accessible exercise. It was socialization. It was something to do that didn't cost much. Parents appreciated it. Kids loved it. But facility upkeep became more expensive. Staffing costs rose. Insurance became a nightmare. Cities started charging more to offset budget shortfalls. By the 90s, admission prices had climbed significantly. Today, a single swim or skate can run $5 or more. Greeting card drugstores and grocery stores had budget greeting card racks. Simple designs, no music, no glitter, no pop-ups. Birthday cards, thank you cards, sympathy cards, 69 to 99 cents. Your dollar covered one card, maybe with change left over. Cards mattered because mailing notes mattered. You sent birthday wishes to Grandma. You thanked your aunt for the Christmas check. You offered condolences when someone passed. The card aisle was a ritual, reading every option, trying to find the one with the right tone, not too sappy, not too funny, just right. You'd sign it, address the envelope, stamp it, mail it. The recipient would display it on the mantle or fridge. Physical evidence that someone cared enough to spend $1.05. But cards got fancier. Licensing fees for characters and quotes increased costs. Heavier cardstock, embossing, foil, all that pushed prices up. By the 90s, even budget cards were often over $1. Today, a decent card can run $4 or $5. Lotto, the classic Canadian lottery, pick 6 numbers, dream big. One line cost exactly $1 through the 80s. You'd fill out the slip with the little pencil, hand it to the clerk, get your ticket, and wait for the Saturday night draw on TV. Lotto 649 was a national pastime. Office pools, family traditions. The Imagine the Freedom commercials that made you believe winning was just around the corner. The ritual of checking your numbers one by one, heart pounding, knowing you wouldn't win but hoping anyway. $1 bought you a week of daydreaming. What would you do with millions? Quit your job? Buy a house? Travel? The fantasy was almost as valuable as the ticket itself. But ticket prices eventually increased to fund bigger jackpots and cover administrative costs. By the 2000s, a single line cost more than $1. The ritual persisted, but the accessibility shifted slightly. 4 jukebox songs diners, bowling alleys, burger joints, anywhere with a jukebox charged about 25 cents per song in the 80s. Your dollar meant 4 plays, 4 chances to control the soundtrack, impress your date, or annoy everyone with your terrible taste. The jukebox was social technology. You'd flip through the title cards, argue with friends about what to play, drop your quarters, press the buttons, and wait for the needle to drop. The crackle of vinyl, the bass thumping through the booth. Everyone in the place knew what you picked. It was about ownership, curation, shared experience. Music wasn't just background, it was the foreground. You picked the songs, you shaped the vibe. But jukeboxes got expensive to maintain. Licensing fees for songs increased. Digital jukeboxes arrived with higher per-play prices. Then smartphones and streaming made the whole concept obsolete. By the 2000s, most jukeboxes were gone. If this trip down memory lane brought back some good feelings, hit that like button and subscribe for more Canadian nostalgia. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.